Omer,
Hmm.
we had a really good discussion some time ago, and I think
Yes.
one of the main themes of our discussion is the very different mindsets and perceptions of the conflict by Israelis and Palestinians, and very different views of each other. Now,
Yes, and incapacity to communicate, I would say.
I would certainly agree that that's one of the things at the heart of it. Now, I had a look at some of Dan's posts, but before I come in with all my preconceived ideas and half-formed opinions, because I have an opinion about everything, even if I don't understand it. Um, uh, but I'd like if you could say a little bit something about, if you like, what drives you to be doing dialogue and your take on the conflict at the moment and on how Israelis are thinking and how Palestinians are thinking.
Okay, as far as I'm concerned, the main thing holding back everything is the fact that Israelis today, almost to a man, except for the left, which is they are totally convinced that all Palestinians are completely decided to murder all Israelis whenever they can, wherever they can.
Yeah,
I'm just exaggerating it a little bit, but that's
yeah,
basically the attitude in Israel. And
yeah.
I had a lot of discussions with a lot of people, and the conviction, even very intelligent, knowledgeable people, believe this without even doubt. And the result is that Israelis are totally disinterested in what's happening to Palestinians, except now in Gaza, where it's extreme,
Hmm.
of course. But in general, they don't care. The government can do anything. They want to send settlers, let them do it. Who cares? Nothing is going to happen anyway. And the result is that it's really basically peace anxiety. They believe that
Hmm.
if there will be peace, there will be war. That's
Right.
actually Gaza is really the example. Here we let them have Gaza, and look what they did. That was
Hmm.
nice. So
Hmm.
my feeling is that, but on the other hand, there's a big difference. Most Israelis, also the same Israelis, they wouldn't mind at all if a peaceful, peace-loving, stable Palestinian state were to come around on the West Bank and Gaza. Most Israelis would be quite happy. Actually, they'd rather not go to reserve duty than do it.
Hmm.
So, and so this is a conflict between two facts,
Hmm.
which I think can be means that something can be done.
Hmm.
And the way to do it is to create a peace process which will make Israelis not fear it.
Hmm.
It will be a process, and the main motivation is, I remember when Oslo happened, and there was a revolving
Right.
door. We knew it. Everybody knew it that there was a revolving door. They were arresting them and freeing them. Right? There was nothing serious. There was no real peace attempt done on the Palestinian state. What I want to claim is that in general,
Actually, could you? Because I remember Oslo, and I did believe at the time that yes, there's going to be a few teething problems, but we're going to have peace now, and there is going to be a Palestinian state now.
I
Um,
did not.
so I think you may have seen something that I didn't see that's worth saying a little bit more about.
For me, it's clear that the Palestinians were not prepared There was
Mhm.
no, the peace came, there was Oslo, and Arafat
Yes.
said something, but internally, there were no discussions among Palestinians. Do we want peace? What do we want? What are we going to do with the right of return, which is a major issue?
Yes.
There was no preparation for it. So, it was clear to me that I was for the process, but it was clear to me that as it was going to fail then and there. And I also had my severe doubts about Arafat's real desire for peace, and he actually
Yes.
said it that it's really a deception mode to get a state and get a foot in the door. So
Mhm.
for me, it was also clear that
Mhm.
since the negotiations were left to the end, that there will be there will be a need for pressure. You can't have negotiations if you don't have leverage.
Mhm.
And Arafat, even if he did want peace, he had to
Mhm.
leave all the leverage. He had to have some leverage, and leverage is terror. That's his leverage to get better conditions. But even if he had goodwill, he would need that.
Mhm.
So it was clear to me that this process was not going to be easy, and indeed, that's what happened. Uh,
Right.
so so now but at that time already, maybe 10, 12 years ago, I already was able to insert a little segment into the Wikipedia explaining the
Mhm.
ideas for the process. Of course, you can't put in Wikipedia opinions, or you have to put
Mhm.
only facts. So I put it in a way that it looked like a fact.
Mhm.
And it's still
Right.
there, I think. It's still there in that section in Wikipedia. And the idea is that you can tell if a Palestinian state, if you divide the creation of the Palestinian state into stages, and you allow time for each stage to take place,
Mhm.
then you can see during those stages which way they're heading.
Mhm.
Presumably, if it's a peaceful state, then in each stage, to some degree, you can peek into what they're doing. You can visit some Israelis at least, can visit them, see what they're thinking, talk to them, see what they're teaching in their schools,
Mhm.
see and of course, hear what they're telling their own people about why they need peace. And then they could, and if you have a feedback tool, that's all you
Mhm.
need. Then you say
Mhm.
we will go to the next stage only if we see that they're serious and they're earnest. They really want peace. At
Mhm.
least to the degree, of course, that each stage, the stages presumably reflect different degrees of sovereignty,
Mhm.
expanding sovereignty. At each stage, they have more sovereignty over more things, and how sovereignty is defined in what aspects is a matter for intelligent people who know what they're doing about this subject to prepare.
Mhm.
But as their sovereignty grows, you can see that to the extent that they have sovereignty, they can do. They can, if, for example, there's an area they control, in that area, they're able to disarm the militias. Um,
Mhm.
so once you have such a feedback, you can have a perfectly safe process that will prevent Gaza from happening again. At
Mhm.
worst, they won't do anything. Now, the other part of the process, which I
When,
evolved
when
more
when you say
recently,
they won't do, sorry, I just need to fix the door. Um, um, yeah. So when you say at worst, that means that if at a particular stage it became clear that Palestinians were not acting in good faith,
right?
then you could freeze the process there
Exactly.
until such time as you could proceed to the next stage.
Exactly, and more so. The whole process, what is the problem really? The Palestinians today have no real leadership capable of leading a peace process. Mahmoud Abbas is not capable to go to the bathroom without asking the Hamas. He certainly cannot lead a peace process. And what
Hmm.
what is necessary is to grow leadership. Today, with the way things are going, and an Israel that declares officially it does not want a Palestinian state,
Hmm.
but even in the past, when the settlers were still going in all without, with the encouragement of all Israeli governments, there
Hmm.
was no uh, uh, the way the peace process was going was having the Arabs had no motive to generate leadership that will create. If you come, the lamb does not come to the lion and said, "Please, would you not eat me up?" It doesn't. It usually wouldn't do that. The Palestinians felt like they are the lamb and they're facing a lion, and of
Hmm.
course it's Israelis are not aware of the fact of the way Palestinians view Israelis. We know we want peace. We
Hmm.
know most Israelis would really be I mean, there is a minority that's violently against it, but the majority, they want peace. We know that. But the
Hmm.
Palestinians are not aware of that. On the contrary, they have all sorts of which I hear when I argue with some of them. I discuss
Hmm.
with them issues. It's clear to them that what Israel wants is to rule from Baghdad to Cairo. This is just a temporary stage that we just worried about the territories. Israeli.
Sure.
So their point of view. So if you come in this atmosphere and say, I want to discuss peace, you're putting your life at risk, at, at least, I mean, seriously at risk. So I think the other part of the process is to give it time. Israel will make such an offer,
Hmm.
the offer that Israel will make will describe completely what the peace would look like. This is a
Hmm.
vision that Israel wants. It's not a commitment by Israel to bring out this vision, but it is a commitment to cooperate with the Palestinians to bring this vision. If all the stages of the stage process are carried out,
Hmm.
the peace, this final status will be reached and the vision will be created, actually,
Hmm.
come into being.
Hmm.
And so this is the idea basically is to give it time, to give the process time. Israel declares the
Hmm.
vision, declares its commitment. What is also nice, as an aside about such a commitment, is that, for example, Saudi Arabia, I'm sure, will regard this as a satisfactory excuse, which they need for their own people internally, to
Hmm.
join some regional pact because today that's their condition that Israel lives. So Israel cannot commit to a Palestinian state, but it commit to a joint cooperation with the Palestinians to create one. It's a different thing altogether. And and I
Hmm.
think that if all these elements come together, if Israel declares a commitment to a peace, to a final status, not to the
Hmm.
final, committed to the process leading to a final status,
Hmm.
then not only it can bring Saudi Arabia, it can also convince most Israelis that it is a safe procedure. There is
Hmm.
only a minor little details is explaining this to the Israelis in a convincing way, which is I've been trying to do this for many months, and I must report a total failure. But I know it's
Right.
possible. I know it's possible. I know that
Hmm.
most Israelis, if they understood it completely and understood the implications, today the far left has created an image which is really they are dreamers.
Hmm.
They don't view reality. They say, look, we'll sign a piece of paper with Mahmoud Abbas and we'll have peace. Well,
Hmm.
most Israelis laugh at this, and I think for a good reason,
Well,
because
I don't think, I think Mahmoud Abbas, for all his faults, genuinely would want to sign that piece of paper, but I don't believe that he's not he hasn't had an election in 16 years. His
Yes,
his people don't support him, and he
exactly.
just hasn't got
The
unless he
clout.
does so as a friendly dictator, and he's not going to live for very much longer anyway.
No, he doesn't have the clout. He doesn't have the
So
clout.
exactly. And that's my reservation about having the Palestinian Authority govern Gaza.
Absolutely, that would be a
Yeah.
horrible error. That'll be a
Um,
horrible error.
I,
To
I I
me,
have to interject. I have to interject. I think
yeah.
you're mixing the cause and effect. Abbas has no clout because he gets no cooperation from Israel whatsoever. Uh,
I
he was
think,
elected in 2004, and basically his strategy of cooperating with Israel and fighting terrorism and trying
yeah,
to reach an agreement with Israel has been completely scorned by Israel,
okay. Look, this
and
is really,
Israel
I
has
mean, this,
Yeah.
completely ignored him.
So, well,
So
honest, I
he is
agree.
getting no results
Yeah,
whatsoever. So of
let
course
me
he's
say
no
yeah.
something here, which
popular.
is very relevant immediately. The process that I am proposing will, if Abbas, if Israel makes a declaration, and as a result Abbas is able to start the process going, then let him do it. It's wonderful. I think there's nothing wrong with that. That's he is also part of the process. I am dubious that he can do it, but we can't settle this argument between us. This nobody knows whether he can or can. I know lots of people. I know people who think that he barely governs Ramallah. It's his governance is corrupt in the extreme, and Ramallah is extremely rich because all the money that's gone to all the Palestinians ends stops. The money stops there; it doesn't go anywhere. And so they have these beautiful malls and beautiful. Ramallah is a rich city, with lots of rich people, and that's it. And the corruption is, and this corruption has power because money has power. Money talks, and so it holds. It's not just
Yeah.
It's
Can I ask Omer, um,
Mhm.
to because it's a it's a point that I'm inclined to agree with, but haven't followed certain events in enough detail. If you could elaborate on how you would say that the Israeli government has humiliated, if that's the right word, Abbas, so that he has lost credibility among his own people,
I
or
mean,
it's
basically,
true.
or stymied Abbas, made Abbas
basically,
illegitimate.
you can see Israel makes every attempt possible to show that you can get nothing from Israel by collaborating. But Abbas has started now for 20 years security cooperation with Israel. Uh, they're saving people who run away into Israelis who enter into West Bank are being escorted outside. They're collaborating with security. I'm not saying, of course, they're doing it partly because it's their own interest, but they
So
are
when you say
collaborating with
Israelis
Israel.
running into the West Bank, you mean like if you suddenly found yourself in Jenin, they'd give you
Yeah,
safe
and
passage.
there's a problem, then the Palestinian police will get you out. Right, if you make a wrong turn, like I don't know if you remember, 20 something years ago during the Intifada, there were a couple of soldiers who
I
mistakenly entered
remember
Ramallah and they were terribly lynched.
I
This kind of
remember
stuff
that
doesn't
case,
happen
and
anymore.
it hugely shocked me at the time.
Yeah, but this kind of
Um,
stuff doesn't happen anymore. I mean, today, if an
yeah.
Israeli gets by mistake or by accident into Ramallah, then the police will escort them out, and
Mhm.
there's no problem, and there's security cooperation. And what does the Palestinian get from that? They get more settlements, they get more settler violence, they get, uh, endless abuse. I mean,
Look, it's
it's
generally
completely
agreed.
undermined. Abbas is completely undermined by Israel.
Hmm.
It's generally agreed that it was the policy of Netanyahu to enforce the Hamas, to create a divide and rule at best, and at worst, actually, to try to undermine Abbas as much as he can without destroying him completely. That was his policy. That's nobody
It
can
still
debate
is.
that.
It still
Well,
is.
one thing I do recall, I'm not sure if it was around 2012. I might have got the year wrong, but there was a point where the Fatah was on the point of doing a deal with Hamas, and I believe it would have been a Netanyahu government that, and if they'd done that deal, you would have had democratic elections, and part of that deal would be that everybody has to recognize Israel's right to exist, or some muted form of that. And Netanyahu said, you either talk to us or you talk to Hamas.
I am very
So,
much of
so
the
really, there's no way that Abbas can be democratic, even if he wants to. Is
yes.
is what I
I
got
mean,
from
he
that.
can have he could. I mean, today, if there's election, I don't know today. The war maybe has changed things. I don't know, but
Yeah.
for sure before the war, I mean, in the West Bank, Hamas would have overwhelmingly won because
Hmm.
Abbas's way, the cooperating way,
Hmm.
gives you no results whatsoever. So
Hmm.
what's the point in collaborating?
Sure. Um, Now, a question I've got for Danny is you started by saying Israelis believe that from the Israeli side, one of the reasons they can't make peace is because they believe that most Palestinians want to kill them or
Yes,
similar.
yes.
You acknowledge that may be a bit of an exaggeration. Um,
Today I saw a poll, which I don't believe is true. I think it's some, but I saw
yeah.
a poll. Somebody's put a poll which was extreme in that respect, because most polls actually the Palestinians don't express such an opinion. But
Hmm.
there was a poll by the I forgot. I have to find today. I have to
Is
trade.
it is it by is it it's not by the sorry, you say the the main survey body that I know of is the Palestinian
No,
Center
it
for
was not
Policy and
that. It
Service
was an Arab. It was
Survey
an Arab
Research.
body. It was an
So,
Arab body. No, it was a
right.
Arab something or other. But I
Yeah.
have to look. And it surveyed 600 people. It said.
Hmm.
I've just started to chat GPT to figure out what's
Hmm.
true and what's false, and I still haven't finished doing it. So
Hmm.
but the results were really to justify that peace is impossible.
Right.
But I don't believe it's. I don't believe the questions. Something is wrong with that survey. It doesn't make sense. Doesn't.
Hmm.
I mean, make sense to me. If it's true, then there's no point in making peace. There's no way. There's no way you can do it. But
Hmm.
I don't believe it's true. I believe it was or misinterpreted. Whatever. It's hard for me to believe.
Um,
And in addition, it's very clear that if you really believe that you're facing a hungry lion, there's nothing you can do or say which will make him happy. He's hungry, he wants to eat. That's his nature. Once Israel presents such a plan, you can find out what is the hungry lion reaction and what is really true belief. If they find that really Israel is honestly ready to make peace and is doing things to prove it without risking its security, then and they really keep repeating it over and over again until it'll take time for it to settle down and to people to absorb the idea. But the question is, will this not as always, there's a range of reasons for opinion. Some people are hardcore. They believe that the Israelis are basically evil, and anyway, they're not Muslim. They have to be killed. On the other extreme are people who are just fearful, and they believe that Israelis, at this point, from what they've seen, are mean, and they want to kill them and rule them. But if they saw a different thing, they will change their mind. So there's a whole range of them. How much and who and what proportions and what will happen, nobody knows today. Nobody can, there's no way to know. The only way to know is to really make an experiment, which you can actually see how people react. If you don't make an experiment,
So,
then people are reacting to the environment, to the ecology. And the ecology
hmm
is the ecology of hate and war, and
hmm
it superposes some misinformation that you cannot find out the true information. And what the plan that I'm proposing is to find out what they really want. Maybe they really all still are bloodthirsty and they're anti-Semites, which is
hmm
impossible for me to believe because they're human beings. They in Gaza, there
Are
were
you
coffee shops.
familiar? Are you familiar at all with Corey Jill Shuster and the Ask Project?
No,
Okay. You're familiar with that, aren't you, Omer?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Um, he takes questions. He's a YouTuber. He takes questions from people all over the world, and he goes out and asks them to Israelis, to Palestinians on the West Bank, and sometimes to Arab citizens of Israel. And it's certainly I found it quite discouraging. I found it both encouraging when he talks to Arab citizens of Israel, who
yes,
often have very nuanced views of Israel and they might have a different view of how Israel should be, but they're usually pretty accepting of their Israeli neighbors and often feel quite positively towards Jewish Israelis. And in the West Bank, you where in the rare cases where it's something like, would you push a button and kill all Israelis? They would normally say no. But when it comes to questions about can you live peacefully with Israelis, either as a as one country, or can you let Israelis have Tel Aviv if you can have Ramallah and Hebron? The majority, particularly of the younger people, react pretty negatively to that. Would you agree with that assessment, Omer?
yes, yes, yes. But the point is, look, the
Yeah.
point is we are all human beings.
Mm,
In Gaza, there were coffee shops, nice coffee shops. There were
yeah.
beautiful apartment buildings, wide avenues. People who are ready to dedicate their life are interested in killing Jews, and they have lose interest in these
Mm,
things. Why? What the heck is the point of this? Why? It's in fact the Hamas corruption.
mm.
Haniya was not a poor man when he died. Because he
Um,
enjoyed the good life. So people want
it's
to,
surprising because when in the Hamas's early days, I remember in the 1990s,
yeah, they were considered,
and even at the start, the early days of the Second Intifada, it was Fatah is impossibly corrupt.
yeah, yeah,
The Palestinian Authority does nothing for us, but Hamas is honest. They look after the people.
yeah, yeah. That was the,
And
that
even
was
as
the,
Israelis that I spoke to
yeah,
during
yeah,
people who lived in Israel, sort of Likud type people. I remember somebody I had at length discussions with. in the early years of the peace process, he said that that Hamas, at least Hamas, are not corrupt, and that's one of the reasons
Yeah.
they appeal to the
That
people. But yeah, you had Ismail Hania living in a five-star hotel
yes,
in Qatar.
yes,
Corruption comes very quickly, right? I mean,
yes,
Mm,
the
exactly. Uh,
temptation of corruption
I think
appear very
mm,
quickly.
I think it's besides the point. If the Hamas people, I assume that there are many Hamas people who really believe what they say and I
hmm
would rather die than live happily. But most normal human beings who are not Hamas, they want to live. And when
mm,
presented with a real choice, you can fight forever
mm,
and do what we want or
hmm
start living, they will start
hmm
thinking, look, there is an issue. The feeling of injustice is
hmm
something that all Palestinians feel today, that I'm very much aware of. There is an
hmm
injustice. The Nakba did them a terrible thing. They had the country and their country was stolen.
Now, where were we up to?
I found the organization that did the survey. It's AWRAD. It's an Arab,
AWRAD.
yes.
And you don't know what that's an acronym for?
Yes, it said something, but I have to look it up. It's Arab
Okay,
something.
no problem. But that was where that was the survey that suggested that the majority of Arabs wanted to
Arab,
kill all
yes.
Israelis, or the majority of Palestinians wanted to
Yeah.
kill all
By the way,
Israelis.
that brings us back to where we stopped. I was starting to say there's no question that all Palestinians feel that there was an injustice done during the Nakba. And
Yeah.
most Israelis don't understand this, and the way to explain it is very easy.
Mm,
If there hadn't been a persecution of Jews, there were no Weizmann wouldn't have talked to Lord Balfour. There would have
mm,
been no Balfour Declaration, and the natural process that would have happened is that this part called Palestine would have become southern Syria, or perhaps Jordan and
yeah.
the Palestine, independent Palestine, and there would have been no possibility for ever there being Zionism. And the Arabs see that as it was definitely a British decision which made the Israeli state possible, and they see it as a horrible injustice. And it's hard to argue against it. I mean, despite the
Yeah.
fact that legally and in any other way, I mean, land is land. There was no country there. Why not? I mean, why not allow people to immigrate? It's very greedy of them to say, well, this arbitrary area is all ours because we live in part of it.
If I
So,
was around,
Well, I mean,
if I was around
to be fair, I have to say, people don't like immigrants
of
in the best
course,
of times, as we
of
can see
course,
yeah,
nowadays.
I think
And
the
the
best.
Jewish immigrants were coming with the intent, with, let's say, hostile intent, or let's say with the intention of taking over
I don't think so. I think,
in the
look,
first place. I mean, it's
you
not
have to read
unreasonable.
Jabotinsky.
It's not unreasonable to
mm,
oppose this kind of.
No, look, if you
It's
read
not unreasonable to
Jabotinsky,
oppose this kind of immigration.
if you read Jabotinsky, you will see. Do you remember the Iron Wall? I'm sure you read it sometime.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. You remember what he
yeah.
says about the Arabs? He is extremely respectful of the rights of Arabs. He said, "We're not going to displace them, and we're going to give them equal right." And I participated in the Human Rights Commission, in which I voted for general human rights for all. So Jabotinsky, the father of the Herut, the revisionist, the father of the the extremist of the is very clearly on the record is saying that's not our intent. Our intent is not to chase them out. But one cannot expect the Arabs to understand those fine points. I don't know if anybody of you have seen, this is really a good example which will clarify how loyalties can change. If you have seen the gang wars of New York, have both of you seen it?
Yeah, the film, The
This,
Gang of New York, I've seen it.
Yes. Well, it's a great thing because the federal government, representing the UN in our case, saw this potato famine in Ireland, and they said, "Look, there are hungry people in Ireland. We need laborers. Well, it's a great combination. Let them into the United States, and they will build a greater America." Of course, the local Anglo-Saxons, all the guard Anglo-Saxons, saw these disgusting, dirty Irishmen coming to steal their jobs, and they stood on their hind feet, and there were these gang wars between Irish gangs and Anglo-Saxon, so to speak, gangs. And it's exactly the same situation. And if you want to see what people's loyalty is, you should ask them whose side are they on, the poor Irishmen who did nothing, but it's true that the Irish came into a setting in which rights were guaranteed. The Jews said that they wanted to guarantee rights, but the Arabs had no way of knowing that, to believing that anyway. So it's clear why it happened is very clear. And Jabotinsky himself says it. He understands the Arabs. He said, if I were Arab, I would do the same. I would, that it's the strangers coming over to my country. So that's why he said you need an iron wall. So the point is the issues are very clear. And the Arab anger at Jews is very clear. And we have to work through that. They have to actually get a decision. What do they really want? Do they really want to fight forever for justice, for past injustice, or do they want to get on with their lives? And that is the issue which will be
well,
presented
okay,
squarely.
coming back to, okay, I don't really know the too much about Jabotinsky himself, uh,
Yes.
but and certainly I've heard this, I think only from one other person, that what you're saying about Jabotinsky was committed to the idea of not displacing Arabs or denying their human rights.
Just
But
Google the Iron
how,
Mole.
but one thing, one elephant in the room about the Nakba is, had the Nakba not happened, Israel would not be a Jewish majority state. So would you be content to have a Jewish hope? Would Jabotinsky or those that followed him have been content to have a Jewish state where Jews were a minority, which is
Well,
what would likely have happened, which is it's difficult to see how that would not have been the case if no Arabs had been displaced and if all Arabs had been given full human rights in Israel.
the truth is, nobody knows what would have happened. There were
Yeah.
650,000 Jews
Hmm.
at that moment, and with the starting point of the War of Independence, or the Nakba. And there were 400,000 Arabs in the Jewish state. By the way, this is something that the Arabs
When are you talking about?
in
What bit?
the partition state
Yeah.
was destined to have contained 650,000 Jews and
Yeah.
400,000 Arabs. It would have had three
That
Jewish
would be
majorities.
on under the part. And are you actually, because I haven't studied, we're all familiar with the 1947 map and what it looks like,
Yes,
but
yes.
I haven't actually read the small print of the 1947
Okay.
partition plan. And was it clear that no Palestinians would be displaced in order
Yes,
to create
yes,
the
yes.
Jewish?
It was clear in the declaration. It was clear not the Declaration of Independence when the British departed, which was of course in May. Then the November before that was the UN decision. between those times there was no. But at the moment the state was declared,
I'm thinking
it was.
specifically of the UN. Once
I'm
Israel,
sorry.
Yeah, the UN
okay,
plan did not did not did not
once the
envision.
armistice happened, those Arabs who were left in Israel, there was at least a a roadmap which eventually led
Yes,
to, okay, they were under military rule for a couple of decades, but
yes,
eventually
yes,
led
yes,
to them more or less having rights within Israel.
yes. But the point
And
is, it
in
was a commitment.
1947, was there clear provision for the
No,
rights of the
in May
400,000?
1948,
Sorry?
it
So
was clear in May 1948,
in
where it
May
was in the briefing.
1948, there was a unilateral oh, sorry, that was when the UN voted to recognize Israel.
No, no, that's
No,
47. That's
November was
47.
November 39 was the decision, and May was when the British left. So in May, Ben
So we
Gurion,
talk, are we talking 1947 here or
well,
Yes.
1948?
no, that's the thing. The thing is, in the space, you say about ambiguity about the rights of Arabs not being
Yeah.
displaced. So between November 29th and May, whatever the date that the British left, there was ambiguity. The Arabs had an excuse that they didn't know what the Jews would do. But in May, before the Arab armies invaded Palestine, Israel actually, before the moment, a minute before that, the Declaration of Independence clearly stated that all Arabs will have, everybody will have equal rights. So that
No,
was
no.
clearly
So
stated.
this would have been Yom HaAtzmaut, basically. So that would be May
Yes.
Yes,
1948.
exactly,
So,
exactly.
so, so okay. Here I'm a little bit unclear on the history. Did Israel declare independence prior to any country actually recognizing Israel's
No,
independence in
no. Well, yeah, of
1948?
course, to be recognized, it had to exist first. But the
Yeah.
UN was the UN decision, and then based on the decision, Israel declared independence. At the moment there is Israel, it can be recognized. So countries started recognizing.
So the UN, because I had the idea in 1940, okay, 1947, they offered it to the Israelis, they offered it to the Palestinians. The Israelis reluctantly accepted it, the Palestinians didn't.
Yes. By the
I mean, I
way,
wouldn't say
So then I
reluctantly.
thought,
I wouldn't say
okay, that's ditched.
reluctantly.
And then
yeah,
I wouldn't say
in,
reluctantly.
in
It was considered a great
1948,
triumph.
I
so this is
remember
where
I was
my
there.
history may be a little bit unclear.
I remember the dancing in the streets.
Uh-huh.
That was, I mean, the outburst. I was there. I saw it. It was exuberance to an nth degree.
And when
People were just
are you're talking
ecstatic.
about May 1948 and Yom
Yes,
HaAtzmaut?
yes,
Yes,
yes, yes, yes,
yes,
yes.
yes,
Which was already during a war. There was a kind of civil war between the
yes,
local Arabs and
yes.
Deir Yassin had already happened.